welcome to Red Eyes Creations Radio. Nice to have you along today, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and we are coming to you from Sweden in Scandinavia. We are here on Thursdays and Sundays, but you can tune in to our program anytime you please, 24/7 through our website, redeyescreations.com, where we also cover news and research in many different areas that we consider to be of importance and of interest. Today we are going to discuss all things related to human version 2.0. We're going to discuss robotics, human-machine and computer interfaces, and cyborg research, among many other things. We have Kevin Warwick with us on the line. He is professor of cybernetics at the University of Reading in England, where he carries out research in artificial intelligence, control, robotics and biomedical engineering. Kevin has carried out a series of pioneering experiments involving the neurosurgical implantation of a device into the median nerves of his left arm in order to link his nervous system directly to a computer in order to assess the latest technology for use with the disabled. He has been successful with the first extrasensory or ultrasonic input for the human, for a human, and with the first purely electronic communication experiment between the nervous system of two humans. This is very interesting research, and I'm looking forward to talking more with Mr. Warwick about all these things and much more here today. I also want to mention that he is the author of Cyborg, and in some circles he has actually been referred to as the first cyborg because of this implant that he has in his left arm, and we'll discuss that a little bit more later in the program. I'd also recommend taking a look at his website. Simply go to kevinwarwick.com. There you can find a lot of information about his research, his publication, how to get a copy of his book, of course, photo galleries, and much more. So with that, let's bring on our guest. Welcome to Red Eyes Creations Radio, Mr. Warwick. I know that you're a very busy man, so we're very thankful to have you on the line here today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's great.
Brilliant. You have a very long bio. You've been involved in a lot of different projects and research over the years. If you will, tell us a little bit about your background in this field and then kind of how long you've been involved in this kind of research.
Well, I guess I was originally more involved with the robotic side of things, particularly looking at how little robots could be intelligent, getting them to learn and communicate with each other, a lot of the things that we would regard as intelligent acts, and lots of stories from those times. I think one robot that we had was learning how to move around in a corral, a little area, just to avoid walls, and essentially what we were doing was rewarding it when it did something positively. So if it moved forwards and didn't hit anything, and then if something came close by, it moved away from it. So we were giving it rewards, essentially just getting it more likely to do what it was doing with its wheels in order to avoid hitting things. But also punishing it if it kept bumping into things, so getting it less likely to do that. And there's one robot that we had just on a one-off time in the end, because we kept punishing it all the time. It was in a demonstration in a school, and the children there were just stopping it doing when it tried to move around. They wouldn't let it move. So essentially every time it tried to do something, it was wrong, and in the end it just stopped doing anything. So effectively you get extreme cases, I think, with robots learning, where even if they have a goal they're trying to achieve, they might well not even attempt to do it. Effectively it was a robot committing suicide, I guess. But that's from way back, stories into robots.
Interesting. And what kind of sparked your interest in robotics to begin with?
I think as a teenager, I was always excited by technology. So I had a motorcycle and used to try and change the different components on that to make it go a bit faster than it should do. So I had an interest in technology, but at the same time, when I was a teenager, various science fiction stories were starting to come out in this area. So we had things from the past like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, but more importantly, Michael Crichton, he wrote a book at the time called The Terminal Man. This was about a guy having electrodes put into his brain. I think he was a psychopathic killer in the book, but I read it more as a science book. So I think science fiction at the time, which would be in the 60s and early 70s, was starting to get into the sort of things that later on science fiction became Terminator and Matrix and so on. But there were forerunning the former science fiction stories about that time that later led on to things like Terminator were around. So it was quite an exciting time. In the UK, we had a series called Doctor Who.
Yeah.
He was time traveling, and he met up with different machines like the Daleks and the Cybermen and all sorts of things, which I guess spark your imagination as a young child and then as a teenager.
Ah, indeed. Well, I saw some of the pictures in your photo gallery, and basically you're running around with a few robots that are very similar to the Daleks, right?
Well, yes. Well, actually, there is one particular one. It was a student project, and what the students were supposed to be doing as part of their degree course, and what they were doing was building an autonomous robot that would move around in the building and try and locate fires. So essentially it had infrared detectors. The Dalek has this eye in the center, and it had infrared detectors in this eye that could locate fires. So what it would do would move around the building looking for fires, something burning, and then it would put the fires out. It would extinguish the fires. So it was an autonomous firefighting robot. But rather than build it looking like some boring piece of machinery, what they did was build it as a Dalek. So we had to get permission from the BBC and Terry Nation, the guy who actually owned the copyright to build this Dalek, which they gave us permission to do it as a student project. So now what we've done with the Dalek, we've got it just remote controlled, and we use it as much for demonstrations and sometimes for open days when students are coming around. But that was a pretty good student project originally.
Wow, very interesting. And, so what would you say are some of the main areas that you focus on today in regards to your research?
Today, well, you mentioned the cyborg implant studies, and clearly at the moment I'm continuing that area, looking particularly at brain-computer interface, and particularly where in the brain to put implants for bidirectional links. So I'm looking forward myself to having another implant in years to come, but at the moment it's studying where in the brain to actually make the link. That's one project, and another project is with Parkinson's disease. There is a deep brain stimulator that some patients have, which pulses electronic signals into the brain to counteract the effects of Parkinson's tremors. And what we're doing with that is trying to monitor the signals in the brain, right in the central area of the person's brain, and use an artificial intelligence system, an artificial neural network, to predict when the tremors are going to occur. So what it's doing is monitoring the electrical signals, the electrical activity deep in the person's brain, and learning the particular features of the brain that result in tremors. And it is predicting accurately. We've got the system predicting 15 to 20 seconds ahead of tremors occurring. So effectively it is getting a computer brain to outthink a human brain. So it's using an artificial neural net to understand in a particular way how a human neural net is working. The third project, these are the three main projects, and the third one is taking neurons, originally they're rat neurons, but brain cells, and culturing them, growing them on an array of electrodes, and after 2 to 3 weeks, linking them up to a little wheeled robot body, and the neurons are driving this robot around. So it's just very simple things at the moment, just getting the robot to move around and not bump into things. So if it comes close to the wall, it moves off to the right or left, and keeping moving around. But the big project side of it, the experiment, as it were, now is not so much culturing the brain, which is quite a challenge, and keeping it alive, but it's more getting it to learn. How do we get this biological brain to learn? Because you can't change probabilities as you might do, change numbers as you might do with a computer brain.
Right.
You can't give it an ice cream or something like that. You have to try and change how the neurons operate, change how they communicate with each other based on voltages and currents. So it's really exciting research, trying to figure out how to get this biological brain to learn to move around a little bit better.
So your research dovetails very much then, I guess, with the overall research that is done on the brain, and specifically the neural network of the brain, right?
Yes, oh yes. I think in each case my work is very practical, and that has always been the case. Sure, can write the theoretical papers that probably in the academic world we need to do to get the publications and satisfy the people that pay us. But what really excites me about the research is doing practical work with robots, building practical robots with neural networks, actually building them and getting them to do something, and particularly with the human brain and human nervous system to actually do projects that involve the outside world and communicating with the nervous system, with the brain, so get something happening, not just in a theoretical or philosophical sense, but practically.
Right, right. And I mean, there have been some developments recently in regards to the interaction between monkeys and robots. There was an article a while back from the BBC, for instance, that talked about the successful experiments in regards to that a monkey actually managed to control a robot's arm just by using its brain. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, well, Andrew Schwartz, I think there are a couple of people. Miguel Nicolelis got some good results 3 or 4 years ago. Andrew Schwartz now from Pittsburgh, I think this was the results that you're just referring to, where there are electrodes in a monkey's brain, and signals from the monkey's brain are used to move a robot arm, and the monkey gets feedback visually and can learn how to move the arm more successfully to pick up objects and so on. So, yeah, I think it's very relevant work, but what I would have to say is there are two things. One is at the moment that it is just picking up signals, monitoring signals from the monkey's brain and using those. It's not actually putting signals into the brain other than via the visual feedback, what the monkey's looking at, but the implant is unidirectional. What we've done so far, firstly, it's with humans, not with monkeys, and secondly, it's bidirectional. So, and I think this is critical. At the start, you mentioned feeding ultrasonic signals in as a new sensory input, and that has been an important aspect of it, is feeding signals in as well as picking signals up out. But Andrew Schwartz's work and Miguel Nicolelis with monkeys, I think it certainly helps us understand what might be possible. But for me, the exciting work really is as far as humans are concerned. I think with the monkey, it'd be difficult to get the monkey to understand. If you're putting in an ultrasonic signal for a human, you can explain what the person's likely to experience. But for a monkey or a rat or some other creature, trying to put over the technology that's involved and what the signals might mean, I would imagine